Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. I'm Six Path Weeb. Today, we're diving into an exciting crossover discussion, Naruko X Sword of Mana, a fusion of two iconic worlds that promises action, heart, and maybe a little chaos. Quick disclaimer. All content on this channel is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage featured in my videos. Full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's jump in and explore this epic blend. The Legend of Mana, the Path of Naruko. 9 centuries ago, the great mana tree faded into memory, its strength dissolving into mana stones, enchanted artifacts, and mystical relics. As the world turned its gaze toward these remnants of mana, sages across lands found themselves in conflict, each seeking to control what little power remained. After 100 years of strife, as the essence of mana began to thin, so too did the ambition of those who sought it. Peace gently returned, and with it, humanity grew wary of desire. Hearts once full of wonder now echoed with uncertainty, and people drifted away from the divine light that had long guided them. They turned away from my boundless strength and quarreled over trivial matters. But still, I whisper. Remember me. Seek me. I am love. I am light and shadow. I create, and I restore. I am not always what you expect, and not all of me is gentle. Those who seek more than light must face my truth. Let me guide you. Let me test you. Become a hero. Walk with me. I had the most unusual dream. Looking back, that's where it all began. I saw the history of the world through the eyes of those who shaped it. A boy named Keldrick. And a girl named Richa. A seed from the legendary tree. A spirited guide. A sacred blade. That was the first vision. What came between matters little to my tale. What you must understand is how the world, now known as the Elemental Nations, came to be. Long ago, the realm of Fadiel was a place of discord. Ancient powers were sealed within artifacts and scattered across the lands. One such artifact stirred again, awakened by a force of compassion and courage. A champion emerged, whose story has been veiled by time. No one remembers their name or even their purpose. But they traveled the world with kindness, aiding those in need and leading hearts back to the Mana Goddess. When her strength returned, the Mana tree blossomed anew. The champion ascended to the sanctuary within, met the goddess face to face, and brought balance once more by embracing both her radiance and her shadow. The world flourished, nourished by the elemental spirits, Undine, Salamander, Gnome, Jinn, Shade, Wisp, Dryad, and Aura. In time, however, the Mana tree faded again. Why, only the goddess knows. This is the world I was born into. And the world I am meant to protect. My name is Naruko. Namikaze Uzumaki Naruko. Let me share with you how my journey began. It all started shortly after I was born. My mother, Kushina Uzumaki, brought me into the world early, shaken by the turmoil surrounding our home, the Hidden Leaf Village. My father, Namikaze Minato, our village's guiding leader, took me into his care. He protected me using ancient magic, ensuring the safety of the village and my future. From that moment on, I grew up with questions. People looked at me with unease, and though I didn't understand why, I learned to endure. I lived simply, often unnoticed, wearing an orange outfit because it was the only one the local shops would sell me. On the 10th of October, what should have been a joyful birthday, I found myself running, chased not by joy but by misunderstanding. Tears blurred my vision as I darted through the village's winding streets. A year had passed since I'd left the orphanage, and now the streets were my home. Though life was hard, I never gave up hope that things would get better. I don't recall what happened next, only that I awoke slowly. I felt soft sheets beneath me, a rhythmic beeping nearby, and the scent of something warm in the air. When I opened my eyes, I saw the one person who showed me kindness, my guardian and mentor, the village elder Sarutobi. Ji-san? What happened? Why am I in the hospital? My voice felt small, barely louder than a whisper. Sarutobi sighed gently. There was a bit of a commotion, but you're safe now. The doctors say you're well enough to leave. Though he spoke softly, I sensed there was more he wasn't telling me. But I trusted him. I changed the subject. Do you think Asuma-san will visit today? I looked forward to Asuma's stories and his warm, teasing nature. He wasn't really my uncle, but it felt like he could be. Before he could reply, my stomach rumbled loudly. I blushed, and Ji-san laughed. Maybe. But first, let's get you something to eat. We left through the window, me riding happily on his shoulders. We headed to Ichiraku Ramen, the one place in the village where I was treated like family. Techui, the owner, remembered my father fondly and always welcomed me warmly. His daughter, Ayame, though young, treated me with kindness and never once looked at me with suspicion. After 8 steaming bowls of ramen, I was full, something that hadn't happened in a long while. Techui waved off our payment as always, though I tried to insist. I didn't like taking kindness for granted, even when offered freely. We made our way to the Hokage Tower, built atop an ancient, colossal tree stump. It was a place humming with hidden magic, drawing the elements close like a silent guardian. At the top of the tower, I found Asuma again, his voice booming as he debated with Sarutobi. I sat on his shoulders, smiling. I loved hearing about the world beyond the village walls, imagining what it would be like to travel and help others like the heroes in old tales. But the moment was interrupted by the arrival of an Onbu messenger, prompting Sarutobi to excuse us from the room. Asuma had errands, so he left me near the tower's entrance. That's when I felt something. A pull, like something was calling to me. Curious, I circled the tower and let my fingers trail across the surface of the ancient tree stump. Suddenly, my hand passed through what appeared to be solid wood. It was an entrance, hidden and mysterious. Drawn by the call, I stepped inside. It was a maze of roots and tunnels, but I followed the feeling guiding me forward. At the center, in a quiet chamber filled with light, I found a sword, glorious and still, embedded in the earth as if waiting just for me. My hand reached out. The sword came free, and in that moment, it transformed into countless radiant fragments, wrapping around my arm and forming a gleaming gauntlet. A warm peace washed over me, and I lay down, drifting into a restful sleep unlike any I had known. In my dream, I stood beneath a magnificent tree that spoke with a voice full of love and ancient wisdom. It showed me glimpses of a world that had once been whole, and what it could become again. And that is where my journey truly begins. Once the girl had fallen asleep, mysterious forms began to appear in a circle around her, each representing a different elemental spirit. One resembled a graceful mermaid holding a trident. Another took the shape of a lizard wielding a flaming spear. A third appeared as a small figure in a pointed hat, a glowing red crystal dangling from the tip. A drowsy, floating blue being came next, followed by a flickering flame with eyes that glowed a soft blue-white. Then emerged a creature with dark, bat-like wings and a single eye. After it came a tree with a gentle, feminine face carved into its trunk. The final spirit was a radiant golden figure, tall and statuesque, with calm, knowing eyes. Once they had all gathered, the figure in the pointed hat spoke first. "Well, my friends, it appears the goddess has chosen her next champion. I don't believe we need to debate whether or not we should support her." Each spirit responded with signs of agreement in their own way. "Excellent," the small figure continued. "She may not fully understand what's happening just yet, and explaining everything might only confuse her at this stage. Still, we should assign one of us to quietly guide her until she's ready. Jin, would you take on the role?" The sleepy, floating spirit gave a slow nod, eyes never opening. "Yes, I believe I'm the right one for the task. She already shows a natural connection to my element." The spirit in the hat clapped his hands lightly. "Perfect. Then it's decided. Let's return to our duties. She will find us when the time is right." With that, all the spirits disappeared one by one, except for Jin, who gently bonded himself to the silver and gold gauntlet that now rested on Naruko's right arm, a small teal gem settling into one of 8 open slots on its back. Naruko awoke hours later feeling rested, unaware of the new gauntlet on her arm. It felt so natural to her, like it had always been a part of her. She moved through the quiet maze with a thoughtful expression, still caught up in the vivid memory of her dream. A voice had reached out to her, not in fear or command, but with sincere longing. That voice had wanted her affection and trust, and something about it felt incredibly real. With that warm feeling in her chest, she stepped out from the base of a great stump, smiling. What greeted her was unexpected. 3 familiar faces looked at her with concern: Sarutobi Asuma, Yamanaka Inoiki, and even Hiashi Hyuga. It was Asuma who spoke first. "Naruko. There you are. We've been searching everywhere for you the past few hours. Where on earth did you wander off to?" Before Naruko could answer, Asuma kept going until they gently guided her to the Hokage's office, where the 3rd Hokage sat patiently behind his desk. "We found her, Hokage-sama," Inoiki reported. The elderly leader let out a sigh of relief. "Naruko, where have you been?" "It's okay, Ji-san," Naruko said brightly. "I just found this hidden room under the old tower and took a nap. That's all." The old man's expression changed to one of surprise. "A hidden room?" he echoed, brows raising. "Naruko, can you show it to me? I've never heard of such a thing." Naruko lit up with excitement. For once, she wasn't in trouble, better yet, she had something new to share. Yes. I remember where it was. Come on. 10 minutes later, they stood where Naruko remembered the entrance being. But the door she had used earlier was gone. Frustrated, Naruko began tapping on the stump with her right hand, drawing everyone's attention to something they hadn't noticed before. Wait, what is this? Ji-san, look. When did this get here? She exclaimed, holding up her arm to reveal the gleaming gauntlet. I didn't find anything like this in there, and I don't remember putting it on. Panic briefly crossed her face as she tried to remove the gauntlet, only to realize it wasn't like a normal piece of armor. She could feel everything through it. It was part of her now. The Hokage took a thoughtful breath from his pipe, letting it out slowly as Naruko calmed herself. I hate to borrow Inara's words, he muttered with a small smile, but this is going to be quite the puzzle. Naruko let out a low chuckle, one filled with reflection. You know, the whole village used to avoid me until that day. But what Hiashi saw with those special eyes of his. It changed something. Sure, most still kept their distance, but the council suddenly had a new plan. They were determined to mold me into something I wasn't, a tool with no voice of her own. Someone who would follow any order without question. But the ninja clans on the council didn't agree. Even if they didn't speak up, they seemed to know who I really was. Even if they chose not to show it. I suppose I should pick up the story from there. Back in the Hokage Tower, Hyuga Hiashi, known for his exceptional sight, activated his Byakugan, an inherited ability that allowed nearly full-range vision and the power to observe chakra networks. The presence of the fox spirit sealed inside Naruko made her chakra network more intricate than usual. However, a recent change had made it even more complex. Her gauntlet had started weaving its own chakra pattern into her system. What surprised Hiashi most was that this network was gently drawing in the fox spirit's energy, purifying it, and then sending it back in a calmer form. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, realized this development would require a private discussion. He didn't question Hiashi directly. The Hyuga leader deactivated his Byakugan and returned to his usual composed expression. She appears to be in stable condition, Hokage-sama. For now, I see no cause for concern. Sarutobi nodded and allowed Naruko to be dismissed. After she left, the room was sealed once more, and Hiashi provided a full report on what he had observed. Hokage-sama, are you familiar with the legend of the Mana Tree and the sacred sword of Mana? The Hokage gave a slow nod, prompting Hiashi to continue. It said the foundation beneath this very tower was once the base of that ancient tree. I always thought it was folklore, until today. The purification process I witnessed. The only explanation I can imagine is that she is somehow connected to the sword. If a spirit like the one sealed within her truly exists, perhaps the old stories are more than just myths. You may have a point, Hiashi-san, the Hokage replied thoughtfully. Especially after hearing her description of that dream. I want to believe it too. But we must inform the council. As much as I wish to protect her from more attention, this might shift how others perceive her. Ah, good old Ji-san, Naruko said to herself, recalling the memory fondly. Always holding on to my father's hopes, even when no one else did. A few weeks later, Naruko was escorted to the council chambers by several Anbu. She stood quietly beside her grandfather figure, confused and unsure. After all, what child wouldn't be, in such a serious place? I said no, Danzo, roared the third Hokage, his patience wearing thin. His longtime rival was once again trying to influence the future for his own benefit. She will not be turned into something she's not. Hasn't she endured enough already? He paused, gathering himself. Naruko will join the academy next year, like every other child. She deserves a future where she can be herself, not someone else's tool. With that, the Hokage gently lifted Naruko onto his shoulders and left the chambers, several council members following with supportive silence. About a month later, Naruko awoke to a strange crackling sound. Her small apartment was being consumed by flames. In a panic, she grabbed her few precious belongings and escaped through the window. In her panic, she didn't realize the fire oddly seemed to pull away from her, almost as if it didn't want to touch her. Behind her, distant voices from a group of villagers echoed, voices that hurt her heart. They were shouting things no child should ever hear. Not knowing what else to do, she ran, her feet carrying her past the gates of Konoha and into the forest, unnoticed by the guards. She didn't stop running until she stumbled into a quiet clearing. At the center stood a large, majestic tree. Something about it felt familiar, like a memory of a home tucked into the branches of such a tree. She smiled gently. Maybe, just maybe, this could become her special place, a safe corner of the world. She memorized the location before quietly returning to the village, heading toward the Hokage Tower. Somehow, she made it inside without being seen. Even the guards didn't notice her presence. Right now, she didn't feel like she could trust many people. "Oi, Ji-san." Naruko announced herself softly. The third Hokage blinked in surprise. Since when did Naruko get so good at sneaking around? "Naruko. What are you doing here so late? Shouldn't you be asleep?" But one look at her face told him something was very wrong. He approached gently. "What happened, Naruko? You can talk to me." Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at him, someone she trusted like family. "Ji-san. My apartment caught fire. I was asleep when it started. I heard people outside. They were calling me names, cheering. Like they were happy. Why? What did I ever do to them?" Her voice cracked with sadness, and then turned to frustration. The pain in her heart was clear, but so was her strength. Just then, Naruko heard a mysterious voice echo softly around her. "I believe I can help you understand. Come to me, little one." Hiruzen Sarutobi jumped up from his chair in surprise. One moment, Naruko was alert and speaking, and the next, she had gently collapsed, as if in a deep sleep. But Naruko had entered a strange realm, one unlike anything she'd experienced before. She found herself ankle deep in shallow water, in a place that resembled a large underground corridor. Curious and calm, the young girl wandered, passing many doors along the way. Most were closed, but a few opened to reveal cherished moments from her past, glimpses of warmth, laughter, and light. "We're inside your mind, little one," the voice came again, as though it knew her thoughts. "Follow my voice." Naruko listened closely and followed the echoes through the winding path, eventually arriving at a massive gate. The bars were held together by a single paper seal. But what truly caught her attention was what lay behind the gate, a magnificent fox, unlike anything she had imagined. The creature's golden fur shimmered like sunlight, and her deep blue eyes sparkled with a gentle strength. 9 elegant tails swayed gracefully behind her, and she sat calmly, watching Naruko with regal poise. Who are you?" Naruko asked, her eyes wide in awe. The Grand Fox gave a gentle nod. "Yes, young one. I am the Kyubi no Kitsune. But my powers and soul have been changed, purified by what now rests upon your arm. I am truly thankful. My past was filled with turmoil, but I no longer carry that darkness." "Kyubi? But I thought the 4th Hokage had defeated you." "Everyone says you were gone," Naruko said softly, trying to understand. The fox gave a calm chuckle. "That story was created to protect you, from misunderstanding, and from fear. The older generation knew the truth, and because of my past, you've faced many hardships. I am the reason for those burdens, and for that, I offer my sincerest apology." With grace and humility, the majestic fox bowed her head low. "Naruko, the choice is yours. If you remove the seal, I will fade away peacefully, and your connection to me will end. But if you choose to let me stay, I will help ease your mind and offer the wisdom I've gathered over many centuries. I will be your guide, and your strength, without causing you harm. The decision is yours." Naruko's young mind was spinning, but her heart was calm. Her decision came with clarity. With quiet steps, she moved forward and gently placed her hand on the fox's nose. "You seem sincere," Naruko said. "If I'm going to chase my dreams, I'll need support, and a friend. Please, stay. I would be happy to have your help." The fox's eyes widened in astonishment. She had expected anger or fear. Instead, she found kindness. "Are you certain, Naruko? This choice will shape your future in ways you may not yet understand," the fox said gently. Naruko nodded, stroking the golden fur gently. "I'm sure. You're not who you used to be, and I believe in second chances." A warm smile formed on the fox's face as she lowered her head. "Thank you, Naruko. From now on, please call me Yuko. I wish to leave my old title behind." Naruko tilted her head, intrigued. "Wait. You're a girl?" Yuko chuckled softly. "Yes, I am. But there is plenty of time for us to talk more. For now, I think it's time for you to return. Sarutobi-san is likely quite concerned." The next moment, Naruko found herself looking up at the Hokage's worried expression. "Oh. Sorry, Ji-san," she said gently. "I guess everything just caught up to me." She stood up, brushing off her worn clothes. "Actually, what I really wanted to talk about before all this happened was something important. I found a quiet place to live in the forest near Konoha. I'd like to build a home there, somewhere peaceful." She gestured to the window overlooking the village. Don't worry, I'm not leaving the village. I still want to become a great ninja. I just need a calm place where I can focus and not feel out of place. Sarutobi nodded, his expression thoughtful. I understand, Naruko. I only wish I could do more for you. Naruko gave him a soft smile. You've done more than enough, Ji-san. But there is one thing you can help me with. In my dreams, or maybe they're memories, I've felt drawn to learning two things, how to forge, and how to grow a garden. If you know anyone who could teach me, that would be wonderful. She walked to the window. It'll take a while to build my home, so I'll be around. See you in a year, Ji-san. With a wave, she slipped out the window and into the night, leaving the old man with a sigh. Naruko. I only wish you had the chance to be a carefree child a little longer. The old man's prediction had been right, it did take a full year. Naruko had a vision in mind, a special home built gently into the trees without harming them. It was a slow, careful process, especially for someone so young. But she did it. During that year, she lived in the forest, learning to gather and forage for food. Sometimes she thought she was imagining things, like glimpses of strange figures that vanished before she could focus, but Yuko reassured her and kept her company. Yuko taught her many things, the history of the world as she had seen it, the warmth of a mother's love, and how to stay calm through memories that once caused Naruko pain. She had become family. As the year neared its end, Yuko revealed the truth behind a mysterious gauntlet Naruko often asked about. It was part of something ancient, a weakened sword of mana, worn from centuries of giving life to the world. Not long after, another spirit made himself known, Jin. He introduced himself once he felt Naruko was ready. It was an unforgettable day. She had been resting from working on her home when it happened. Naruko was nibbling on a strip of boar jerky, her mind wandering as she pondered the second mystery of the gauntlet. The strange turquoise stone and the hollows that seemed to fit similar stones had always intrigued her. As she gazed at the small stone, she noticed it flash briefly before a strong gust of wind blew by, forcing her to close her eyes to avoid the dirt. When the gust passed, she opened her eyes again to find a curious, sleepy-looking figure floating gently before her. Who are you? Naruko asked, unsure of why she felt an immediate sense of intelligence emanating from the figure, as though it had witnessed the passage of ages. Sylph. The rider of the winds. But just call me Sylph, the figure replied in a voice that was kind, airy, and drowsy. Naruko blinked, trying to recall where she had heard that name before, when Yuko's soft giggles echoed in the back of her mind. Suddenly, it clicked. The legend of the Mana goddess, which Yuko had once told her about, spoke of elemental spirits. Sylph was the avatar of the wind moon and one of the strongest wind spirits. Naruko quickly knelt down, bowing respectfully to the spirit. My apologies, Sylph-sama, I didn't mean to be disrespectful, Naruko said, her voice sincere. Sylph chuckled gently. Stand up, Naruko. I don't require such respect. You are more like a partner to me, and as long as you live, I will be a part of you. This left Naruko even more confused, though she stood up again. But Yuko said the sword had attached itself to my arm until its strength returned. Sure, it purified her soul and has been feeding off our excess chakra to regain its energy, but we didn't sense you at all. I kept my power hidden from you until I felt you were ready, Sylph explained. I sealed myself within that gem, allowing no one to sense my presence. Naruko, you didn't find the sword by mere chance. You have a destiny much greater than you can imagine. The world has strayed from the goddess, and she has been consumed by her dark side. If this continues, the world will descend into chaos once again. The goddess called to you through the sword, believing that your pure heart could bring the world back to her. The spirits have agreed to aid you in this task. The others will show themselves when you are ready, but know this, there will be trials, and they will not be easy. Naruko absorbed this information eagerly, her smile growing wider as she began to understand. So everything I dreamed was true? Sylph nodded, closing his eyes once more. Yes, but while you are ready to understand your destiny, you are not yet ready to wield the powers of Yuko or me. Don't rush to grow up too quickly, as that can harden your heart. Enjoy your life as much as you can. With a final nod from Naruko and a gust of wind, Sylph vanished back into the gemstone. From that moment on, Naruko could communicate with Sylph just as she did with Yuko. Sylph made his presence known within her mindscape, becoming a part of her growing consciousness. Yuko had adjusted the seal so she could wander freely within Naruko's mind, which led to a new vision of her mental landscape, a vast green plain. From then on, Sylph was the wind that carried her thoughts. Eventually, Naruko returned to Konoha, her right arm wrapped in bandages and wearing a set of rough leather clothing. The villagers who hadn't seen her in so long were surprised, having thought she was lost. As she walked through the village, inspecting the changes, Anbu surrounded her. She was so accustomed to this treatment that she simply followed them to the place they were leading her, Ji-san's office. Naruko. I was starting to think you weren't coming back at all. Did you do what you set out to do in the forest? Sarutobi said warmly, pleased to see her again after such a long absence. Hey, Ji-san. Yep, I finished the work last month. I'll show it to you sometime. It might be small, but it's all I need, Naruko grinned, crossing her arms. But that's not why you had me brought here, right? No, that's not it, Sarutobi replied. Remember when I told you that you'd be starting at the academy this year? Naruko nodded, recalling the conversation. Well, tomorrow is your first day, so I expect you to be there bright and early. Also, I ordered something from Suna for you. I hope it fits well. He handed her a bundle of cloth, and Naruko examined it carefully. Wow, you actually got the size right. You've been keeping an eye on me with that crystal ball of yours, haven't you? Naruko joked before heading into the bathroom to change into her new clothes. The outfit was simple yet practical, a loose shirt with a light, flexible metal breastplate that reached her waist, attached to wide metal plates covering her hips, giving her full range of motion. Her pants were wide and pleated, flowing from her hips down to her hem. She wore close-toed shoes that were slightly longer than her feet, with a slight curve upwards. A glove on her left arm ended in a tight metal band below her shoulder, and she wore a long red scarf that she used to partially conceal her face. She left the bandages around her gauntlet intact and, upon leaving the bathroom, bowed respectfully to Sarutobi. Thanks, Ji-san, really. I don't think I've ever had more comfortable clothes than these. Sarutobi nodded, pride in his eyes. I paid the tailors in Suna a little extra for continued repair and adjustment. When you need them bigger, just let me know. Naruko nodded. Will do, Ji-san. How about the other thing we talked about, though? His answer was a scroll tossed to her. Upon opening it, she saw 2 addresses. The Yamanaka family will teach you the basics of gardening. It's not really something that can be taught. The head of the Kiruru weapons shop has agreed to take you on as an apprentice. You'll work with both after classes on alternating days. Naruko smiled brightly at this. She had been itching to work in a forge for a while. Hi, Ji-san. Is that all then? I want to take a look at the academy, maybe meet the teachers before I actually attend classes tomorrow. Sarutobi nodded his assent, and Naruko left his office through the window before dropping to the ground. She had already figured out how to use chakra to augment her jumping and cushion her landings. Once on the streets, she wandered through the town once more, making sure to note the locations of the Yamanaka shop and the Kiruru forge. She found the academy and walked in, looking around to find where the teacher's lounge was. Once she found it, she entered cautiously. She was still far too used to adults glaring at her, if not chasing her down with ill intent. That wasn't what she encountered here, though. All eyes turned to her, showing one of 3 things: respect, confusion, or concern. All except for one silver-haired teacher's assistant, whose eyes held an atypical amount of burning disdain. Hello everybody, my name is Uzumaki Naruko. I'm just here to let you all know that, starting tomorrow, I'll be attending classes. Know this, I know exactly who and what I am, and I will take any discrimination problems directly to the Hokage. Treat me like everybody else, and we'll get along just fine. Thank you for your time. With a wave and a bright smile, she left the room. Well, that was different. One pineapple-haired teacher commented before returning to his prep work. Naruko made her way through town slowly, a gentle smile on her face. Even if most people on the street were throwing distrustful glares at her, she was having a good day. That is, until a mob of angry villagers began to form behind her. She chuckled softly to herself. A year in the forests of Konoha and the spirit of the once demon inside of her had made her wily as a fox herself. Quick as a summer breeze, she vanished into a crowd of people nearby before slipping into an alleyway. From there, she jumped onto the roof of a nearby building, traveling from building to building in such a way that she avoided the eyes of the mob entirely. Once close enough to the gate, she slipped through quietly, returning to her forest haven. A soft chuckle sounded through her mind once she was safe inside her home, and she delved into her mindscape, finding herself in the center of the plain. How did I do, Yuko? She was kneeling in the grass, having taken on her human form, a tall, fair-skinned woman with long blonde hair that ended at her waist. She was wearing a sky-blue kimono that made her cerulean eyes shine brighter. Well, I would say that your escape was just about perfect, but you should have taken more care to avoid being seen in the first place. I'll take that into consideration. I don't want to be invisible, though. Tomorrow's going to be a big day, huh? I hope I got the message across to the teachers. Not that I need school for the knowledge when I have you too, Yuko and Sylph chuckled along with her. However, I don't need my classmates thinking ill of me because of the teachers. After a short chat with the voices in her head, as she affectionately called them, she returned to the outside world, opting to get an early night in. The next day, she went with Yuko's advice and made her way to the academy undetected. She even managed to slip into her classroom unseen, 10 minutes before anybody else arrived. She took a seat, watching as her classmates began to filter in. The only two she recognized vaguely were a deep blue-haired girl with pale lavender eyes, which she immediately recognized as a Hyuga. The next was a platinum blonde with blue eyes. Her hair was pulled back in a high ponytail, but she left part of her long bangs unbound to cover her right eye. Naruko placed her as a Yamanaka. The resemblance to Inoiki was too close. Once all the students were in their seats, their teacher made his way to the front of the room to call attendance. Class passed by quickly, the teacher merely explaining what their school life would be like before dismissing them to recess. Naruko went out with the others, but instead of playing, she leafed through the course book that she had been given. Well, until her classmates decided she should play with them. It was a group of boys, a young, feral-looking boy with triangle-shaped red marks under his eyes at the lead, with a chubby kid whose cheeks bore red spiral marks, and a lazy-looking boy with a pineapple hairdo. Come on, kid. Let's go play. None of us have seen you around before, and you seem pretty cool, well, not when you just sit and read. The feral boy seemed hard-pressed to say what he really meant, but Naruko understood anyway. Yeah, I'll play with you guys. I don't know any games, though. I've kinda been living on my own. The other boy's eyes went wide at that. You mean that you don't have parents telling you what to do all the time? The blonde looked at her as if examining a new breed of insect. Is it good to not have parents? The boys had the good graces to look embarrassed. No, I didn't mean it like that, Naruko chuckled, waving her hand. It's alright, just try to avoid saying things like that in the future, please. That was how she met and befriended Kiba, Choji, and Shikamaru. After school that day, Naruko waved off offers from her new friends to join them for dinner. Instead, she took a winding path through town, leading to the gates so that nobody would follow and find her sanctuary. Ino had gone home immediately after school, excited to talk to her parents about her first day at school. As she and her parents sat down to dinner, Inoiki asked her how her day had gone. It was great. Our teacher is nice, and the boys in my class are really cute. Especially this blonde kid. He's got these tattoos that look like whisker marks, and his clothes were so cool. I think his name is Naruko or something. Inoiki grinned to himself. So the kid's still around and doing well. That's good to hear. He decided to overlook the fact that she called the girl cute. Little girls change their minds all the time, right? Hinata had a similar experience. For once, her father seemed interested in her life, and she was overjoyed to be able to talk to him like family instead of the clan head. Well, our class seems to be diverse. Many of the head clans have children of theirs attending this year. There was a girl that I couldn't quite place, though. She blushed slightly when she thought about her. Spiky blonde hair and strange whisker marks, like a tattoo or a birthmark. She was very thin, almost like she'd been eating only enough to keep her going. Uzumaki Naruko? Hinata nodded, answering her father's question. So she's doing well for herself now. Hinata, I want you to be kind to that girl. She has already led a more difficult life than most adults. She deserves to have people she can trust. The girl nodded again, and then there was silence. Hyashi still wasn't too sure how to act around his daughter. Naruko, sitting down to her own Spartan meal, was caught up in a fit of sneezing. Somebody must be talking about me. Probably another mob or something. With a shrug, she dug into the stew she had set cooking before she had left for school that morning. The first year of school was challenging. I was no stranger to hard work, but my schedule kept me on my toes. I remember my first day of training after settling into the school routine. I found myself standing in the front room of the Kiraru shop. Naruko looked around with wide eyes, fascinated by the many different kinds of weapons lining the walls of the shop, all marked with the Forge's seal. The only clear area was behind the counter, where a girl, perhaps only a year older than her, stood watching for any customers while her father worked on his craft. She had almond-shaped brown eyes and had her hair tied into two tight buns on top of her head. It was she who spoke first. Hey, kid, I'm not supposed to let anyone younger than a genin in here. Sorry, but you'll have to leave. Naruko was confused. Didn't they know she was supposed to work here? But you're here. Why can't I be here too? She puffed up slightly, pride in her eyes. Well, that's because my dad owns this place, so I can come in whenever I want. Her bragging was interrupted when a strong hand was placed on her shoulder. The hand belonged to a man whom Naruko would have thought of as a giant. He stood at 6 feet and was heavily muscular from lifting forge hammers. It was amazing that he could still move with ease. He had dark hair, like his daughter, though it was tied back in a short ponytail. His eyes were sharp but kind, matching his dark brown hair. Now, Ten-chan. You wouldn't want to send my new apprentice away before I even got the chance to meet her, would you? He turned his gaze to Naruko, a small grin on his face. Well, a bit scrawny, but I guess we all start out that way. I'm Shinrei Kiruru, but you'll just call me boss or sensei until I've taught you all I can. Now that that's out of the way, time to clean up the shop. Ten watched as Naruko followed her father back into the forge room, a look of confusion on her face. A small one like her as dad's apprentice? She won't last a week. At the forge, Shinrei tossed a shovel to Naruko, pointing at the dying embers. Alright. Your first job is to shovel it out. You won't do anything else but shovel and watch until you get some strength, and I'm satisfied that you're an apt learner. If you're lucky, I might just let you help carry in the raw materials from time to time. With a grin and a salute, Naruko set to work, vaguely recalling a memory of a short man under a very large horned helm who had worked the goddess's former champion to the bone while teaching the craft. After cleaning the fire pit, Shinrei helped her prepare for the next day, stacking dry wood beside the pit. It wasn't until late in the evening when she was allowed to leave, sore from shoveling and carrying heavy logs. Still, she made her way back to her forest sanctuary, undetected as usual, and dug into the meal she had set to cook while she was away. She spent an hour meditating, speaking with Jin and Yuko without distraction, before crawling into bed and falling asleep almost immediately. Outside her window, 7 small figures looked in at her sleeping form. Well now, it looks like our girl's growing up strong in mind and body. In a few years, she might be ready to take on her full burden. Arg. You take things too slow. I say we should just talk to her in the morning. The sooner she gets training, the better for everybody. Cool it, hothead. We agreed that we'd only show ourselves when she's ready. Jin was alright because he's the most suited for her. Her body would reject the rest of us outright as it is now. There's only so much room for power before a breaking point is reached. It would be wise to wait until the first stage of manifestation takes place before another of us even makes contact. Goldie is right, you know. Yes, I think 2 or 3 more years will be enough. Besides, the sword isn't strong enough yet to hold more than just Jin. Now, even so, we should decide who will be next to join her. Morning came quickly for Naruko, but she always considered that a good thing. It meant that she could take one more step closer to her dreams. There was a substitute for their class that day, though. The silver-haired teacher, whose eyes often held disdain for her, had taken charge that day. Upon realizing which class she had, he handed out a surprise quiz. Hers was subtly affected by a genjutsu, making the text nearly illegible. Needless to say, Mizuki graded the tests in front of the class, writing the results on the board for everyone to see. All but Naruko's friends laughed and taunted her. One boy, beloved by most of the girls in the class, took the opportunity to call her Dobi, a nickname that would stick with her throughout her school career. Naruko was strong, though, and soldiered on through the rest of the day, enduring harsh comments about her intelligence and lack of family, as well as being physically humiliated by the loathsome silver-haired substitute during their taijutsu lessons. Every time something needed demonstrating, Mizuki would choose her and attack without mercy. It didn't help that Naruko was still sore from the night before. Finally, class was over. Choji, Shikamaru, and Kiba made sure Naruko was doing okay before heading home, having academy homework and an early curfew set by their parents. Naruko left the academy, slowly walking toward the Yamanaka shop while thanking the goddess for Yuko. She had been healing her body throughout the day, making sure not to raise suspicion from her classmates. Somehow, Naruko didn't notice the shy girl trailing behind her, a soft blush on her face as she tried to gather the courage to speak with Naruko. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, throwing caution to the wind. Naruko-san? May I talk to you for a while? Naruko turned around, surprised to see her out of class, but even more surprised that a member of Konoha nobility would bother with someone like her. No. They're not all like that. Hiyashi-sama was kind to me before. She pointedly ignored the gentle tutting of Yuko for letting her guard down for so long. Good evening, Hinata-sama. I have somewhere I need to be, but if you would like to walk with me, I'd enjoy the company. She bowed slightly, unsure how to act around someone like Hinata. Hinata nodded, her blush deepening as she walked beside Naruko. You. ID. Don't think what Mizuki-sensei did to you today was fair. Naruko shrugged, flashing a grin. Thank you for your concern, Hinata-sama, but I've had far worse. A little bit of hazing won't dampen my spirits. She pumped her bandaged right arm into the air to emphasize her point. Hinata smiled as well, finding it hard to resist joining in Naruko's enthusiasm. Naruko-san, see. Could you just call me Hinata-chan? I don't see myself as above you, so. Naruko nodded, stopping a few feet from the door to the Yamanaka store. Sure, but only if Hinata-chan will also agree to be more familiar. She smiled before nodding toward the shop. This is my stop though. Guess you could call it a part-time job. She waved before entering the store, the bell above the door tinkling. The lavender-eyed girl gave a short bow. Think I can do that, nah. Naruko-chan. She waved back to her before setting off toward the Hyuga compound, lost in her thoughts of having found her first friend. Again, Naruko was greeted by a girl her age sitting behind the counter, looking bored. This time, however, it was Ino Yamanaka, the blonde daughter of Inoiki. She looked up, smiling brightly as Naruko entered. Hi there, Naruko-chan. Daddy just told me today that Hokage-sama set you up with a part-time job here to learn how to garden. I didn't even know boys liked flowers. Naruko scratched the back of her head, grinning. Hey, Ino-chan. It's more like learning to grow produce, actually. Not that I don't like flowers or anything, but when you live on your own. Ino was about to ask another question, but her mother's voice stopped her. Ino, honey, I'm sure she'll talk about it when she's ready, but not a moment before. Besides, we need to get her started, don't we? She turned to Naruko, smiling brightly. So nice to meet you, Naruko-chan. Inoiki has told me a lot about you. I'm Reina, Ino's mother. Now then, let's get started. How much do you know already, Naruko-chan? The work that day was similar to the work Naruko had done at the forge. She shoveled dry dirt and plant matter into compost heaps to create good soil for the garden. Reina wouldn't let her leave until she had sat down to dinner with their family, something Ino was thrilled about. On her way home, she had the cover of darkness, once again leaving the gates of Konoha for her own forest sanctuary. There, she spoke with Yuko and Jin for a little while before finishing the small amount of homework she had and turning in for the night. This was now my reality. Whether I was working at the forge, helping out at the flower shop, or attending school, I was always surrounded by people who supported me. Hinata, Ino, and I had grown closer over time. Ino and Hinata balanced each other perfectly. Now, Hinata was able to speak confidently, no longer stuttering, and Ino had learned to keep her temper in check. Somehow, I had also developed a friendly rivalry with a boy named Sasuke Uchiha. It was just another day in class, late in our first year. To test our progress, our sensei had decided to pair students up for taijutsu sparring sessions. Sasuke Uchiha and Naruko Uzumaki, you're up. The teacher beamed at the raven-haired prodigy. Even though many had come to accept Naruko, most of the teachers still favored students with clan bloodlines, offering them special attention. Sasuke took his stance while Naruko stood with her hands at her sides. What's wrong, Dobi? Forgotten how to fight, or are you just scared of how good I am? Sasuke's fan club squealed in excitement. Naruko smiled confidently. Why should I be scared, team? I haven't seen you do anything impressive yet. She shifted into a stance that only her friends had seen her practice. She stood with her feet firmly planted, yet moved with a fluid grace. Kobushi no Sekai Ryu, Kazinagare. Fist of the World, Windstream. Ooh, this is going to be exciting. Show him what you've got. Kiba cheered from the sidelines. Shikamaru smiled knowingly, as did Hinata and Ino. Choji, usually focused on his snacks, had decided to pay a little more attention to the fight this time. This is the first time I'm using this style in a real fight. Try to stay up, so I can enjoy this a bit more, team? Naruko teased. Sasuke, angered by the challenge, charged forward, feigning with a left punch and quickly shifting into a kick. Naruko swiftly flipped onto her hands to avoid the kick, spinning midair to land a kick on the back of Sasuke's head, knocking him out in a single strike. Ah, damn. I thought I told you to stay up. I was looking forward to testing out a few more moves. Oh well. Naruko walked out of the ring toward her friends, giving them a thumbs up, while Sasuke's fan club screamed in shock. A pink-haired girl, the leader of the group, tried to convince the teacher to punish Naruko. Hey, she didn't even use basic academy taijutsu. She hurt Sasuke-kun. You said no excessive force, sensei. Haruno-chan, Sasuke was using advanced taijutsu himself, the teacher explained. Besides, he's fine. See, he's already waking up. I'm not going to punish a student for excelling. Sure enough, Sasuke had sat up, glaring at Naruko's back. Oi, Dobi, what the hell was that? How dare you have that much power? I want a rematch. Unless that was just luck, and you're too scared to fight me properly. Naruko chuckled, turning to meet Sasuke's glare. No, I'm not scared, team. Right now, you're not on my level. I don't want to hurt you too badly. A wise person once said that unnecessary fighting only leads to chaos. Or something like that. Be careful with your pride, someday, it might get you in trouble. The bell rang, signaling the end of class. Naruko waved goodbye to her friends, promising to meet Ino and Hinata for dinner. The two were spending the night at Ino's, and Reina was making ramen, which guaranteed Naruko's attendance. But first, she had work to do at Shinrei's shop. Tenten greeted her as usual. Hey, Naruko. Dad's in the back again. I think he's teaching you something about the mana elementals today. I couldn't really catch it. Tenten flipped through a weapons magazine while Naruko made her way to the back. There, Shinrei was waiting, with various materials spread out on the workbench. Ah, there you are. Time to learn something new. Did you know you can make weapons out of materials other than metal? For example, you can craft knuckles out of wood, bone, or stone. But remember, not every material is suitable for every weapon. The material must be strong enough to withstand the wear and tear of battle. Additionally, each material has its own elemental affinities, so if you're using chakra to enhance your weapon, you need to be careful what you choose. Naruko spent the day learning about weapon making and the importance of selecting the right material based on its elemental properties. By the end of the lesson, Shinrei pointed to a black ingot. This is chakra steel. It might look plain, but it's worth more than gold or platinum. It's attuned to all the elements, and weapons made from it can be incredibly valuable. You can also store the essence of the elementals in this steel, making it even more powerful. To do that, you'd need mana crystals, but that's for another time. Go home, rest up, and get some sleep. As Naruko left the shop, her mind buzzed with possibilities. She had already begun designing the perfect weapon. That's probably exactly what Shinrei had intended. When she arrived at the Yamanaka household, she pushed those thoughts aside, ready to enjoy dinner with her friends. The following years passed quickly. Naruko had learned a great deal from Reina, but she still made it a point to join her friends for dinner every day. By the time she reached her final year of school, Naruko was allowed to try her hand at forging simple kunai. Her talent was apparent, and for her birthday that year, Shinrei gave her a heavy ingot of chakra steel. He said it was a sign of faith in her abilities and that he believed she would graduate. After months of hard work, Naruko finally crafted the weapon she had been envisioning for years. She named it Tsukihitsume, Moonfire Claw, because although it was made of black steel, it glowed like the moon. That final year, Naruko had a teacher she would always respect, Iruka Umino. He was one of the first people to truly accept her for who she was. Iruka taught Naruko that the greatest tool for a ninja was deception. Naruko had begun to hide her true potential from the rest of the class, especially Sasuke, whose obsession with power had become dangerous. Over the years, he had started to lose himself. His thirst for power had grown after the tragic events with his family, and though Inoki tried to help him, the trauma was too much to overcome. Graduation day finally arrived. Iruka attempted to calm the noisy classroom before resorting to his signature demon head technique to silence the students. All right, now I can hear myself think. We will have a written test, an athletic test, and a jutsu test. I expect you all to do your best. Begin the written test now. Naruko flipped the page with a grin, recognizing that a genjutsu had been placed on the test. However, she wasn't worried. She had prepared. With a slight spike of chakra, Naruko dispelled the illusion without drawing attention to herself. The test went smoothly after that. Naruko even refused help from Yuko when she got stuck, finishing the test long before the hour was up. She propped her feet up on the desk and smirked, earning glares from both Sasuke and Sakura. What is that idiot Naruko doing? Finishing before Sasuke-kun? She must have given up. Sakura thought, while Sasuke fumed internally, how is she better than me? She's not even from a clan. Time's up. Head outside for the next portion of the exam. Make sure you have all your equipment ready, Iruka announced. Naruko stood up, checking that her utility pouches and kunai holsters were in place before attaching Tsukahitsume to her left hip. She joined her friends outside. "Hey, Naruko, I've been wondering something for a while now," Kiba said. "What's with your arm? You've always had it bandaged up. Are you a burn victim or something?" Naruko quickly dodged his attempts to uncover the secret. "That's for me to know, Kiba. You'll just have to wait until I decide to show you." Kiba huffed in frustration. "Well, if you're not going to tell me that, at least tell me where you live. We tried following you home one night, but you disappeared before we could find out." Ino smacked Kiba on the back of the head. "Baka! You weren't supposed to say that." Naruko laughed at the antics of her friends. As always, Kiba and Ino were bickering, Shikamaru was watching the clouds, and Choji was munching on his chips. Hinata, shy as ever, was quietly fidgeting with her hands. "I guess I've been a little secretive about that, huh? But after we all graduate, I'll show you all where I live." Well. The Dobi squad," Sasuke sneered, walking over with his fan club in tow. "You and your little group, huh? Don't get too comfortable. One of these days, you'll have to face me for real." Naruko raised an eyebrow. "I think you've got your wires crossed, team. How many girls are following you around, and have you even considered any of them? Maybe you're the one with a thing for me." Sasuke's face turned red, but before he could respond, Sakura jumped in. "Ino pig, how can you even hang around someone like Naruko? Sasuke is so much better than her." Ino rolled her eyes. "How can you say that when Naruko's at the top of the class? Just because she doesn't show off like Sasuke, doesn't mean she's weaker. If anything, it makes her better." Sakura was speechless for a moment, as she had never thought about it that way. She was so fixated on Sasuke that she hadn't considered Naruko's strengths. "Well, Sasuke is still cooler and cuter. If they fought, Sasuke would win, hands down," Sakura said, convinced of her argument. Iruka approached, signaling the end of their argument. "All right, let's get back on track. Time for target practice. Sasuke, you're up first." Sasuke performed well, hitting most of the targets, though missing one. After gathering his kunai, Iruka called for the next person. Hinata and Ino, who had been practicing with Naruko, managed to hit all but 2 moving targets. Shikamaru matched Sasuke's score, much to the frustration of the fan club. Kiba and Choji did well in close combat but missed several targets. Finally, it was Naruko's turn. She approached the line, flashing Iruka a confident grin. "Sensei, can I try using something other than standard projectiles for the test? I have something special in mind." Iruka raised an eyebrow, but nodded. "Sure, as long as it's a throwing weapon, it's fair game. Are you sure you want to use something new for your graduation test?" Naruko grinned. "It's time to show what I can really do." Naruko only grinned wider in answer, reaching into one of her pouches to pull out several mini chakrams, throwing them all at the same time. At first, it looked like she threw them all in the wrong direction, but they hooked in the last second, leaving long gashes through the center of each target before flying back to the blonde who caught them effortlessly. Well, they may not do quite as much damage as shuriken or kunai, but when you know how to use them, it's hard to lose any. She grinned again, rubbing the back of her neck as she heard Hinata, Ino, and Kiba cheering that she had beaten Sasuke. "Come on, that's just unnecessary, guys. Being happy for me is fine, but we don't need to sink to his level, do we?" They had the good graces to look embarrassed, which only made her chuckle. "Naruko-chan, do you think you could teach us how to use those throwing weapons? Something like that has to be good for combat," Hinata asked with a blush. She may have lost her stutter, but she still had a hard time talking to Naruko without blushing. Naruko could never quite figure out why, while Yuko always seemed to know something that she wouldn't tell her. "Yeah, I think so. It takes a little more control and concentration because you have to throw them just right to get them to come back. I think everybody could pick it up though," Naruko explained. Shikamaru, normally quiet, decided to speak up for once, catching Naruko's attention. "It's troublesome to ask, but can I see your palm, Naruko? The way you caught those, you should have cut yourself up pretty bad." Naruko grinned, holding her bandaged palm out for him to see. "Nah, don't worry about it. See, I'm all right." She didn't realize that Shikamaru had been fishing for a hint at what was under her bandages and managed to get quite a bit. Now all he had to do was start fitting the pieces together. Of course, that would require quiet time to think, something she wouldn't have for a while. The sparring test followed soon after. Mizuki was the proctor for the exam, and Iruka explained that the students had to last as long as they could against him. The minimum time to pass was 1 minute. Of course, once again, Sasuke was first. After an ego boost from his fan club and Mizuki pulling all of his punches, he lasted for double the necessary time. Ino had managed to last the time limit, just barely. Hinata excelled, employing her clan's Juuken style with practiced ease. Shikamaru, Kiba, and Choji all passed as well, managing to avoid or block Mizuki most of the time. When Naruko was finally called, she could see the glint in the silver-haired teacher's eyes. Over the years, she had come to distrust Mizuki, and now she could tell that the man was going to go all out in an attempt to make her look like a fool. Naruko stepped into her Kobushi no Seikai stance, smiling confidently. If there was one thing Mizuki couldn't stand, it was the demon brat looking happy. So strong was his urge to put her in her place that he charged in, attempting to incapacitate Naruko immediately. However, she took hold of Mizuki's fist as it came towards her, redirecting the momentum through her body to flow around the man's left side, bringing her elbow crashing into Mizuki's ribcage, effectively winding him. Backing off to run the clock, Naruko used the remaining momentum to handspring backward, landing in her solid stance. Mizuki had other plans though. Unnoticed by anybody but Naruko, the older man now had thin blades between each of his fingers, leering at her. "Is that the best you've got? Come on, let's try that again." Deciding to take the offensive for once, Naruko slid into an aggressive stance, charging forward. Thinking he had the upper hand, Mizuki went for her face, only for Naruko to tumble into a tight ball before springing her body outwards, catching the man under the chin with a kick, knocking him out of the ring. Iruka beamed from outside the ring, holding his hand up to signal the end of the match. "I can't believe I'm saying this during a test bout, but that's a ring out on Mizuki. Naruko takes the highest grade so far with the only win." The school bell rang out, signaling that it was time to break for lunch. Iruka sent them all on their way, reminding them that they needed to show up at the classroom in an hour to take their final test. 10 minutes later, Naruko's group could be seen at Ichiraku Ramen, Naruko's favorite place to eat. The others could still only watch in awe as their friend consumed impossible amounts of ramen at high speed, while they all took their time eating. "Hey, Naruko, looks like you've got the top grade so far, huh? Damn, if I could pull half the stuff you did today." Kiba stopped talking to drain the broth from his bowl, sighing with satisfaction. "Troublesome. You don't really expect us to believe that this was the first time you've used those chakrams, do you? Also, with your schedule, when do you even have time to practice that style of yours?" Once again, the brain of Shikamaru was actively gathering information on his enigma of a friend. Naruko polished off her 8th bowl of ramen, stacking the empty bowl with the rest. I wonder. Yes, I do practice with the chakrams, but as for my style, I just kinda do what I feel like. I only gave it a name to make it sound cool." She smirked inwardly. "Well, not really. I do get a lot of practice in the mindscape, and I'm constantly taking advice from Jin. Can't tell them that yet though." Soon enough, it was time to head back to class for the final test. Once all of them were seated and quiet for a change, Iruka outlined the final portion of their exam. "You've all done splendidly so far. For the final segment, you will have to pass a jutsu test. You will demonstrate the basic jutsu you have been taught in school, kawarimi, henge, and bunshin. Enter the room when your name is called, perform, and then head outside. First up is Shikamaru." The lazy genius waved to his friends as he went into the room. Those who were left made themselves comfortable and quiet. Naruko and her friends spoke with each other using a form of sign language they had created over the years. "How do you think Shika will do?" Ino asked, addressing the group as a whole. "Lazy's smart, even if he doesn't like to show it. He'll pass this one easily. How about you, Kiba? You still having trouble with the henge?" Naruko looked pointedly at her feral friend. "Don't worry about me, I've got it now. What about you? Last I checked, you couldn't pull off a bunshin to save your life." The only reply Naruko got to this before being called was a tap on her temple and a grin. One by one they filed into the next room until it was finally Naruko's turn. On the only table in the room rested a lineup of Hitei 8 with the emblem of Konoha engraved on them. Behind the table sat Iruka and Mizuki. "All right Naruko, let's see what you've got. Henge first." With a nod, Naruko ran through the simple set of seals, and a small smoke screen appeared. There stood a perfect replication of the 4th Hokage, grinning confidently. Another poof of smoke, and Naruko was back to normal, grinning at a glowering Mizuki. "Good, next perform the kawarimi with the log in the far corner." Again, Naruko performed the jutsu flawlessly, replacing herself with the log and then switching positions again. Instead of waiting for Iruka to tell her to continue, she blurred through yet another simple set of seals and produced 5 perfect clones of herself. So, do I pass or what? Iruka laughed as he tossed one of the Hite 8 to Naruko, who caught it, tying it around her bandaged forearm. Thanks. Guess I'll see you tomorrow for team assignments. Later Iruka-sensei, Mizuki-sensei. Pulling her scarf over the bottom half of her face, Naruko exited the room and went outside, giving her friends a thumbs up. Well guys, looks like we all made it, huh? Wonder what kind of team we'll be on though. All I hope for is that I don't get stuck with the Uchiha. I don't think I could handle dealing with a broody, power-hungry person like him for much longer than a few days. I've already had more than enough of him challenging me daily and stalking me to figure out how I train. Speaking of stalking though, I guess it's time I showed you guys my pad, huh? Shinrei-sensei's given me the day off. With a wave, she bade them to follow, and together they left through the gates, much to the surprise of her friends. Wait. When we followed you last time, we lost you around the shopping district. Now we're out in the middle of the forest? Choji looked around as if expecting an ambush. Yeah, I normally take a roundabout way through Konoha before leaving. I'm sure you've noticed the glares I get and the crowds that tend to form behind me. Well, let's just say there's a reason for everything, and that's the reason why I live out of the public view. Yet another one of my secrets that I'll tell you later. After a few more minutes of traveling, the group arrived at Naruko's clearing, mouths agape once they realized exactly where her house had been built. You built into a tree? How did you manage to do that without harming it? In fact, the tree looks healthier than the ones we tend. Ino ran her hand over the rough bark of the tree, marveling at Naruko's expertise. Not quite sure exactly how I did it, but it works. All I can say is that I carved in very slowly and carefully over the course of most of a year. What are we all doing standing outside though? Come on in. The blonde opened her door to her guests, ushering them inside where they sat at a low table, carved, once again, by Naruko herself. She went to a kettle of water she usually had over the fire and made tea for her friends before seating herself with them. So guys, what do you think? Pretty nice, huh? The group stayed there for a while until deciding that they should get home and sleep before team assignments the next day. Each of them made Naruko promise that they could visit her there every now and then, even though she had already offered her home as a place for them to rest whenever they needed to get away from it all. However, it still felt too early to sleep, so she decided to take a walk through the woods. It was during this walk that she saw something that surprised her. There, in a small clearing, stood Mizuki with a large scroll strapped to his back. Mizuki-sensei, what are you doing out here so late at night with such an important-looking thing? Naruko must have caught the silver-haired man off guard because when he turned around, his eyes were wide in shock. Naruko-chan. What are you? No. This is perfect. I get away with the forbidden scroll, and you take all the blame. It's difficult to believe that Mizuki would betray the village like this. But I have one question, what were you doing out here at this time of night, Naruko? Iruka asked, looking up from the motionless figure of his former teammate, only to find that Naruko had disappeared into the night, as quietly as the creatures that roamed the forest. In the Hokage Tower, the third Hokage sat at his desk, gazing into the crystal ball that he often used to monitor the village's affairs. He smiled behind his interlaced fingers, having observed Naruko's activities throughout the day. Naturally, he was aware that it was Mizuki who had stolen the scroll. He also knew Mizuki would pass through Naruko's territory, and he had full confidence that Naruko would stop him. The Hokage had even anticipated that Naruko would read the scroll, and he had planned for the Cage Bunshine technique to be passed down exactly as intended. It was no coincidence that the Hokage was considered one of the greatest ninjas in the village. Dear family. That concludes this segment for now. I'll be back soon with more content. Stay tuned and keep supporting. Love you all. 6 Path Weeb.